On an August day in 2009, Rachel Betts, a 27-year-old former kindergarten teacher, disappeared. This event shocked her family, who lived in a northern suburb of Melbourne, Australia. The investigation gained notoriety, partly because it revealed the true state of the law enforcement system. Rachel was an only child, but when she turned 11, her parents divorced. Rachel's mother decided to settle her personal life and met a man who already had children from a previous marriage. Soon they moved in together, and Rachel found herself in the role of an older sister. The girls immediately liked each other. Everyone knew little Rachel as a kind, sincere child, very sociable and open to people. She easily found common ground with peers, younger and older. The girl was her mother's helper, assisted with household chores and younger children, and supported her mother during difficult times. As Rachel grew older, she became fascinated with the idea of becoming a kindergarten teacher. She always managed to teach her younger siblings. The girl got along with children so well that she decided to dedicate her life and career to them. Although she herself, due to health issues, could not have her own children. But this did not prevent Rachel from getting an education and starting her career as a teacher at the age of 27. Despite this, she always dreamed of having children. Therefore, in 2008, she gladly welcomed two teenage girls into her home in Wapping, near Sydney. Both girls had problems in dysfunctional families, so Rachel became a real guardian angel for them. When troubles began at home, they would go to the teacher, where they were protected from and quarrels. However, Rachel's relatives and friends had doubts about the good influence of teenagers on her. There were suspicions that because of them, Rachel sometimes had problems and could not settle her personal life. Moreover, her financial situation deteriorated because of this. Rachel earned little and shared money with the teens. Sometimes she gave away her last money, had to deny herself many things. To cope with financial difficulties, the girl got a second job, but overestimated her strength and soon lost it. Troubles accumulated like a snowball, debts grew. During this difficult period, Rachel met a new boyfriend who later turned out to be connected with bad company. They used prohibited substances and eventually got Rachel hooked on them. The girl also met Leslie Coombes, a friend of her boyfriend. As acquaintances said, he gradually began to have a strong influence on her. Having fallen into bad company, Rachel's life began to fall apart. The girl was simply wasting away before their eyes. Her physical condition noticeably worsened, emotional problems began. Gradually, due to prolonged substance abuse, she developed paranoia. She began to rave, suspect everyone of conspiracies. Once, before her eyes, a car ran a red light. Rachel reacted inappropriately and got into an accident. Then she claimed that it was deliberately staged. Rachel lost her charming appearance. Even her teeth, thanks to which she had a lovely smile, began to deteriorate from the effects of substances. The girl had to use special plates to protect them. Parties were held in her house every day. Close girlfriends, having learned about this, tried to pull her out of this swamp, but the addiction was stronger and they could not help. The critical point came when Rachel fainted at one of the parties where she was with a friend. They were taken to the hospital, where Rachel stated that she could have been. But the medics, from her appearance, realized that she was addicted to substances. Rachel exhibited pronounced symptoms of paranoid delusional disorder. Her statements were not confirmed, so the doctors called the appropriate services. Rachel was sent to a rehabilitation center, where she underwent treatment. In the summer, the girl returned home to her mother. For a while, everything was fine. Rachel held on and did not use prohibited substances. But old habits did not let her go. The addiction turned out to be too powerful. One warm August evening in 2009, the girl left home to return to the bad company with which she had loud parties almost every day. When Rachel was about to leave, her family understood where and why. She asked her mother only one thing: "If I go today, will you love me tomorrow?" Her mother answered through tears, "Yes." These were the last words the family heard from Rachel. After that, the girl stopped answering calls and messages. Her phone was turned off, her relatives could not find her. Her mother intuitively felt that her daughter was in danger. They turned to the police for help. They accepted the statement but were in no hurry to look for the missing girl, given her troubled past. Law enforcement officers believed that she was just hiding somewhere with friends. About a week later, southeast of Melbourne, a man who was jogging on the beach in the morning noticed something on the shore. Running closer, he realized that these were human remains. He immediately notified the police, and they arrived at the scene. On the beach, only a left female leg with a tattoo in the form of purple flowers on a curly stem was found. At that moment, it was the only clue for the investigation. The body was not found. On August 18, this information was made public in the media. An old friend of Rachel's heard about the tattoo on the found leg, which resembled the drawing on the girl's body. He did not know about her disappearance and tried to call, but she did not answer. Then he contacted the two teenage girls whom Rachel had once sheltered. Had they seen Rachel recently? One replied that she had not seen her for a long time, but they were waiting for the teacher to return after rehab. The other noted that she had communicated with her recently. It seemed strange to him, because usually they always knew where Rachel was and what she was doing. Meanwhile, the police had been thoroughly examining the island where the gruesome discovery was made for the second day already. They were looking for the body but could not find it anywhere. Law enforcement officers compared the tattoo with databases but found no matches. At the same time, forensic experts assessed the damage. They determined that it was a female leg, separated from the body in the hip joint area. At the same time, there should have been massive blood loss. The scale and nature of the damage indicated that the woman could no longer be found alive. Rachel's family friend turned to the police, suggesting that the found leg could belong to her. Investigators confirmed this information, since the girl had exactly the same tattoo. Rachel was listed as missing. Everything added up. After that, the police contacted her mother to report the terrible tragedy. The worst fears were quickly confirmed by DNA analysis. Later, on another island nearby, some more body fragments were found, and 3 weeks later, fishermen caught the second leg in the sea. Unfortunately, the victim's entire body was never found, but the collected parts were enough for identification. They all belonged to Rachel. Detectives began communicating with the family of the deceased, trying to find out what happened and who was to blame for her death. All relatives and friends noted that recently she had been hanging out with rather unpleasant types, but the greatest concern was caused by 54-year-old John Coombes. The man had recently been released from prison, was aggressive and dangerous. Rachel fell under his influence, so suspicions immediately fell on him. Detectives thoroughly studied this person and found out that he was a very suspicious character. Investigators obtained a search warrant for the home where Rachel lived. The first thing that caught the eye of the police were numerous diaries in which the victim wrote down names, surnames, and contact phone numbers. Among all the initials, the letters JC were most often found, which denoted the name John Coombes. It became clear that it was he who manipulated the deceased. The girls she lived with knew what a creepy person he was. They could not help but guess where Rachel had gone, but it seems they knew even more, yet they were silent, fearing that the same fate would befall them. During conversations with teenagers, the police found out that the former teacher had promised the girls to return soon, but this was not destined to happen. The cops understood that the girls had a much greater amount of information but were afraid to speak. Despite this, the teenagers also wanted to help in the investigation of the murder of their mentor, who replaced their mother. Therefore, after a while, they still made contact with law enforcement. It turned out that they knew a lot. The girls told the whole story. On August 10, 2009, Rachel drove from Epping to the neighboring Heidelberg. It was only a 20-minute trip, after which she parked the car and went shopping. It was here that she met John Coombes, who, according to the investigators, was the last to see her alive. The next day, at 6:30 a.m., she contacted her friend, but she noted that she did not feel any alarm or danger in her voice. Rachel sounded cheerful and said that they would meet on Monday. When the police turned to John Coombes, the main suspect in the case, who last saw Rachel alive, he provided a convincing alibi. At first glance, it seemed flawless. His words were confirmed by many independent witnesses. But the words of a hardened criminal required more thorough verification. During the investigation, detectives, analyzing the geolocation data of the mobile phone, found out that the suspect was lying. Believing that law enforcement had sufficient evidence to bring charges, they arrested Coombes. It was a coordinated arrest. In addition to the leader of the criminal group, several more accomplices were detained in order to find out their versions of the events that preceded Rachel's disappearance. The criminal began to cooperate with the investigation from the first minutes of detention, as soon as he was put in the car. He stated that Rachel had mocked him, which provoked his aggression. But this confession was worthless. Facts and evidence were needed, not the words of a hardened villain. Coombes said that they headed to the island, near the place where the left leg was found. Rachel said that Coombes owed her money for sleeping with her teenage girls. John was furious that he was being asked for money, so he decided that Rachel deserved to die. He stabbed her in the chest and strangled her. With inspiration, John described in detail how he carried her body home and dismembered it in the bathroom, like a piece of meat from the store. With gruesome details, he told how he divided the body into parts, demonstrating his knowledge of how to properly cut the tendons. The man confessed that he cut out the tattoo from the body, cut off the breasts and limbs, and then threw the remains from the pier into the water. Even more horror was added by his acquaintance, Nicole Gutheridge, who was present during all these atrocities. According to her, in the midst of a bloody orgy in the bathroom, the killer invited her to watch. Law enforcement officers were not sure whether this criminal could be trusted. In addition, it was absolutely incomprehensible to the investigators at what exact moment the woman died. The police went to the crime scene and carefully checked everything. However, it was obvious that the traces were carefully washed away with the help of various means and bleaches. Only a few drops of blood were found in the bathroom, the DNA of which coincided with the genetic material of the victim. For the killer, this was not the first case. He already had 2 serious convictions for the murder of 2 people. How could the Australian judicial system consider this scum worthy of release? This question was repeatedly asked by the media and all those involved in this high-profile case. The story caused a significant public outcry, because a person who had previously killed 2 people and showed inhuman cruelty was recognized as one who could be released on parole. He was released in 2007 after the first crimes. It took him less than 2 years to commit a third murder and take Rachel's life. In September 2009, Coombes was charged with the intentional murder of Rachel Betts. This did not surprise the woman's relatives and friends at all. They repeatedly tried to explain to her that this relationship would not lead to anything good, but she could not overcome her addiction. The case turned out to be quite confusing. The defense clung to every discrepancy, of which there were many. Coombes and his accomplices lied to everyone. For example, he accused Rachel of using 2 girls to sell them for money. But both refuted these statements in court, thereby protecting the honor of the deceased. All this dragged out the case until 2011, when John appeared in court on murder charges. The accused, meanwhile, told tales left and right. It seemed that he was enjoying it. The media inflated his every remark to the level of national news. Finally, on August 26, 2011, John Leslie Coombes was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment without the right to early release. After the verdict was announced, leaving the courtroom, the killer showed the victim's relatives an obscene hand gesture. He openly demonstrated a lack of any remorse or compassion. Thank you for watching this story. Write your thoughts about it in the comments. Don't miss the future videos, subscribe and like the channel. Take care of yourself and people you love.